Yeah.
the flywheel. And so this is
Yeah.
interesting
Well,
because
like, if you're holding if you take a kickboard, kneel on the deck of the pool, and you take a kickboard in your hands and your fingertips in your hands, and you just put an inch or two of the tip of the kickboard down on the water. You're just kneeling on next to the pool, and you pull it straight back, and you'll just pull it back, and you go, oh, that's really easy. And so what's happening is the kickboard is moving the water backwards. It's like a river, just going straight down. If you put that kickboard back in the water, same position depth, and then you change the angle, either left side or right side, you rotate the hand, you will be able to barely move the kickboard. And we're talking just minuscule, like an airplane, a wing of an airplane, a little bit of flip, just a smallest amount of deviation of the angle of attack of the ailerons, or the smallest amount of deviation of your hand when it's in the water, will cause you to have greater lift. But for me, it's not so much you're doing something with the hand, it's that you're slight internal rotation, like when you just did this a moment ago. I watched your shoulder, and it's a subtle motion. It's not like, you're moving like so, but it's just a very subtle motion, and you get this beautiful high elbow catch that causes that slight angle of attack to change and to sweep back and hold water. It's not back, it's more holding against the resistance. And the kickboard is a great little tool. I think if listeners went out and just sat on the side of the deck, held a kickboard in your hand, put the tip in, pull it straight back, you go, oh yeah, just pull straight back. Well, that's a straight arm pull.
hmm,
Your hand just slips right through like an old paddle wheel on a steam engine, because those boards on a steam engine, those old things, they just pushed water straight backwards, and it took 19 guys shoveling coal into the engine in order to keep the energy up. And then eventually, there was a development of a propeller concept, and this curvier linear propeller, this curved shape, actually every time it turns into clean water, or still water, actually, or air. That's what you're doing. If you're pushing or pulling straight arm, you're pushing water straight back. And you're causing any forces you do get are opposite. And so it's basically these small amount of changes in the angle of attack that are what's distinguishing, the good swimmer from the not so good swimmer. And they're in still water.
and that's why you see, if you're looking at the path of someone's hand, it's like this skinny yes. It's very slight curve of the hand. It's nothing extreme, but there is a
Yeah,
curve to it.
skinny
It's not
S.
straight.
I like that term, a skinny S. I never heard that before. That's really exactly what it is. But it's how you get there, I think, is teaching it in that front quadrant, those catch up drills. Looking at the video is really helpful, which I know you do a lot. The video is such a cool device, and then making sure that uh, they do enough repetitions of it. And I had this technique or this way of coaching. I says, pass or fail. I mean, it's just like there was no middle ground. So like I'd have them swim 50 or something, and then we'd film it, and I'd ask them, was each and every stroke, whatever the technique we were working on, because we usually and that's the other thing, only work on one thing. You can't multitask, you know, forget it, in my opinion. Uh, but we'd film it, and I'd ask them, pass or fail. Did you execute each and every motion the way that we were intending? And at a slow, relaxed intensity. And, you know, very often they would start to give me a editorial. No, no, no. pass or fail. And then we'd look at the video, and that was so good, so helpful. And, with all the cameras nowadays, that's fantastic. I wish we had that years ago. I had this massive, 80-pound camera that we used back then, but it still worked.
Not like the GoPros we've got today or the iPads. Made things much
Yeah,
easier
no, it's
to do this.
fantastic. I mean, you can do FaceTime video with your coach from the pool if you want.
That's right. Um, so I had an athlete come to a clinic on the weekend, and he was a mountain bike coach and a doctor as well, and he was
Oh,
doing some research into uh, learning new skills or new movements, essentially. And one of the things that he found was that when someone's developing a new skill, let's say you're trying to improve your catch, for example, when you are first learning it, you are going to be using more muscles. So more muscles that are not required will eventually not be required to do that movement. So you're using more of your upper traps and your shoulders and your back as you're learning this. But then as you get better at it and you have more repetition, you've got that efficiency of movement. So you're not using those muscles that aren't necessary, but in the beginning you are, because you're still working out that pattern. You're thinking about things a lot. So that's why it can be very tiring to be doing something new. And I think part of that's just the mental fatigue as well when you're concentrating on your stroke, but also the physical fatigue of using, say, twice as many muscles. It's burning a lot of energy that way. And so that's why it can be quite exhausting, and they can't hold that for an entire session. So I found that was quite interesting and new to me.
yeah,
I hadn't heard
I
that
would
before.
agree. I would agree with that. It's, the synapses of learning, not knowing, the brain is dictating, the mind is telling thought is has thoughts about what you're trying to do, and then larger muscles are being utilized because there's this kind of uh, disassociation from it, and that's really pretty smart because it is more fatiguing at first.
Absolutely.
But if you're a 6-year-old kid jumping in the water and everybody's going, I can remember, and you probably too, is like, they're just beating you to death, basically with volume. And then you go, okay, I've got to get better at this. I've got to get more smooth. I've got to get, and eventually the evolution of being in the water teaches you how to be more efficient. If that's your goal, if that's something you want to do and you have the propensity for. But that was really smart, and that's good stuff. Good example of how people go about learning. It takes time. Difficult things take time, and I've always tried to tell people, hey, it's not going to be, we're not going to change your hamstring or quadricep or piriformis or like hip adductors or glute medius. All these strength issues have to be done over time, and also there's underlying issues with each person. Everybody walks, talks, moves a little bit differently.
Mm.
But to my point about having that fundamental, if you're not achieving that high elbow catch, then you're kind of not going to probably get too much better.
Yeah, I mean, your catch and pull, that is where the majority of your propulsion is going to come from. And you've got to connect it up with your rotation in your body and the
Right.
timing of your kick. You've got to do that too. But that is where most of your propulsion is. Your kick doesn't give you much at all.
No,
It is more balance
no.
and stability. So
Right.
you've got to get good at your catch. Um,
I agree.
I want to just briefly talk about the N25 lift paddle that you've developed and we've worked on for the last couple of
Oh,
years.
yeah. Great.
What's the purpose of the paddle? Why is it different? We haven't talked about that yet, but we've been talking about the catch, and this is really
Yeah.
what the paddle's designed to improve. So could you just talk a bit about how you've designed it with the shape, the grooves, and anyone who's listening to this, you're going, okay, you're probably curious to see what it looks like. I'll put some links in the show notes, and we're doing a Kickstarter for this paddle. So I'll put those links in the show note. But could you talk a bit about the paddle itself and how it can actually help someone improve their catch?
Well, I think we've really been talking about how it was developed without talking about how it was developed. And, all those years of research and understanding. Well, first of all, if I go back into 1996, I developed patented a curvilinear path with arcuate shaped patented shape of a swim paddle. No one had ever done that before. And it was patented, and I licensed it to Speedo, and they sold, as you mentioned, worldwide all over the place. Many, many thousands and thousands, if not over 1 million of those paddles. Uh, Also, it was knocked off by many companies too, but that's okay. But the patent ran out in 2014. And once the patent's done, then all of your major swim brands made similar looking paddles. And it was interesting because I had just started this book and I thought, because I invented that paddle during one of my earlier books because of the research that I was doing. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to maybe have that opportunity again. And of course, this last book took over 3.5 years. And sure enough, some concepts and ideas came to me. And that's what we've been talking about: movement. What initiates movement in order to get the high elbow catch? And as mentioned, once you understand what the motions are, then the products are pretty straightforward. So I went about, having never done that before, I went around about drawing what I thought the movement should be. If you look at wing shape, I looked at many, many different types of airfoils, what they do and their cause and effect on air and water. And I looked at, oh my gosh, just so many animals, fishes, turtles, seals in particular, of their shapes of their bodies and their fins. And so, but it was based on what I knew got the high elbow catch, which was that slight internal rotation at extension, by the way, right? It needs to be out front. And it's just so subtle, and it's that internal rotation. So I said, okay, well, that's what we want the paddle to do. Okay, so then I started looking at current state of art, and I thought, well, the current state of art is kind of based on my paddle, the swim foil, and the contour training paddle. It's time, and I go, well, they're all made out of this polycarbonate kind of plastic, so there's really nothing. And then I started thinking, so I started designing my own paddles, and I became an expert at using a Dremel and foaming, and I made many, many models. But it was interesting, if I look back at my first drawings, how similar the end result is to that because of the foundations, the fundamentals I was talking about. I kind of knew what I needed to build, even though I hadn't built it. And so the first prototypes were very close, and I would often take, to speak of some of the triathletes, I would take neophyte triathletes and put them in the water and film them, and watch what happens to those straight arm poles, right? Because that's what they're doing mainly, I think, and that kind of the thing that they do. And I go, okay, that's working a little bit, because I'm not telling them what I'm doing. I had a great pool in Colorado in Longmont. The director there allowed me to come in and do those things, which is nice. You need that kind of support too, right? I could come in there, take a lane, have all my stuff laying around and not being bothered by anybody. And we filmed a lot of triathletes doing that. But the thing was, is I always knew if it worked with less than 25 meters. I mean, I knew when I had it done. And finally, eventually, and I would test all these as well, for sure. But I only tested them like 25 meters. That was about it. I knew within the first few strokes if it was making that shoulder internally rotate, because that's what I was trying to do. And so then I came up with this concept of okay, what about materials? What kind of materials can we do? Can we utilize that will, uh, well, one thing I'm not afraid of is telling what we do, is because I know competitors will start doing it. But but we looked at buoyancy. How buoyancy affects uh, curvilinear motions and motions of the elbow. So basically, this M25 lift paddle. And Brenton and I, just for the audience, we were talking about these things when we first started working together many, many years ago now. And I was telling him the stories about how I invented the original swim foil and the contour training paddle, which were licensed to Speedo. And I knew in 25 meters that it was right. And so that's how we came up. And what it's doing is lifting. It's lifting and rotating. But we use a specialized shape. The curvilinear shapes, the leading and trailing edges are all geared to cause that elbow or the shoulder to rotate slightly. And it's a tool. It's a tool to help people learn something that's very often takes years to learn. And we do that by the shape. We do that by the material. It's unlike any other paddle that's made. It's got this very beautiful elastoline material, and it's going to feel like your hand, and it's going to have different buoyancy in different regions of the paddle. And the purpose is so that it helps rotate. So it's it's a complex patented design with unique material that was came pretty straightforward because I knew what it needed to do.
Mm.
It's pretty simple. But the nice thing is you and I and our other partner Jane have navigated a very long process of how this was made. And not easy to do something like that. And we're so excited to have finally got the prototypes. We've got all of the manufacturing in order. We're ready to go, and pretty exciting to do it, to create a new standard again in paddle design. And we have not only this product, but we've got several others patented right behind it. That the good thing is we've got the manufacturing sourced here in the United States, by the way, which is fantastic. They're within a half hour of where my home is. Not an easy thing. It took over 5 years to find that. And so we've
Isn't
got
it
a
funny
great
though
team.
to like
Huh?
have them? Isn't it funny though? Like we're looking in Taiwan and other
Yeah, we
places, and
had we
then
had
there's one place that can
sources
do it.
in Taiwan, and then COVID hit, and then cost of shipping was crazy, and it just scared the heck out of me to think that our paddle could be on a container ship, and then it gets stuck out there in the Taiwan Straits or the China Seas, and then it gets stuck outside of. I mean, we are so fortunate to have navigated this very lengthy process, but we are totally ready with the materials, with the all of the elements that go into making a great product. And quite frankly, we're looking for people to help us launch our company, M25, and it's a branded division of Sports Engineering Group, which is my company now. I don't coach anymore haven't for 7 or 8 years now. So I'm totally into Sports Engineering Group, designing and patenting these products. And we're like right on the precipice of launching the M25 swim brand, and with people support, with viewer support, we'll offer them opportunities to get early stages of product, and it'll be great, and different levels of support. And the nice thing is, and basically what we're asking people to help us with, is to launch this company. It's not an easy thing to do. All the patenting costs and design costs, and what is it, 5 years we've been working on this? Maybe I've been on it 7. So we're really excited. I mean, I'm very excited, and we're going to have other products right behind this first paddle, and I'm super excited about our kickboard and pull buoy and those kinds of things. It's a good time. So
Mm. And I mean, the reason we're doing this is a Kickstarter is just the tooling alone for the paddles is more than $100,000 just to
right,
get the tooling
right.
to be able to start making the paddles. So we need to have about 10,000 people join the Kickstarter, or 10,000 paddles. So it's quite a big ask, but yeah, it's a great product, and I've swum with not the end version of them in terms of what it's going to be made from, but I've swum with the paddles, a 3D printed version, and they feel great. Like they feel really really
Right.
good. So I'm excited to get them when they're completely made with the right stuff, with the right buoyancy, and
Hmm.
yeah, and then we're not too far from it. So I'm really looking forward to getting to that point where people are able to use these and they're able to have a paddle that actually helps them with their stroke, because I see a lot of paddles that are making their stroke worse. I'm not going to mention what kind they are, but there's a lot of paddles out there that I see people using, and when they come to me, I can actually see that they've been using these paddles that they have, because they have these sort of hitches or things happening in their stroke that these paddles are causing. So there are paddles that can actually make your stroke worse. Um, I want people to be using things that work and make them better. So yeah, these paddles are very very different, very unique, and there's a reason why it's taken so long to get to this point. But we finally got to the point where they can get manufactured now.
Yeah, we're super ready, and you know, uh, I'm pretty convinced that this paddle can set a standard for a lot of people, and be a significant help to people learning this high elbow catch. And the you know we're the same thing is going to be with our kickboard. It's going to change the standards of how kickboards are utilized, and not only from the shape. We have, I think, some beautiful designs in these, and I think you mentioned you might put up a couple of pictures or something. Is that right?
Well,
So
they'll see them on the Kickstarter page. So
yeah, yeah.
uh,
So anyway, it's all good. I mean, other companies are going to be doing good things too. I just always based my designs on fundamentals of movement. And so if their criteria is, that their product is saying it's going to help them do something, that's great. And, but yeah, to your point, like the flat paddles of the old days, is exactly that straight pushback paddle wheel that I was talking about. And that was when I had the aha moment in the mid 90s about making a curved paddle, which is the swim foil or the contour paddle with Speedo. And then just about every paddle and I haven't really looked for a couple of years, but like I said, when our patent ran out, everybody was making a more curved or hand shaped paddle. I mean, if you look at the shape of a hand, it's curved. It's not flat. So, but between the, like I said, the buoyancy, the shapes, the leading, the trail edges, the curvilinear shapes, the arcuate shapes of the paddle, combined with the material and the way it will feel on a person's hand, it's going to feel like you're touching your own hands, which is really beneficial. And they're not heavy, and the buoyancy is something I'm really excited about and always wanted to be able to develop. And we found the right type of material for that. And yeah, and it is expensive. Patenting is what, 115,000, or the uh, molds are $115,000 in order for make left and right side paddles, left and right side straps. We haven't even talked about our strap. Nobody has ever seen a strap as functional and streamlined as the one that we have. And it happened because it was a fundamental that I had. And that's why I keep going back to those. When you know what you need, then you build it. And it's very purposeful. I knew I wanted a strap that had no impact upon the hydrodynamics of the paddle. I didn't want it to, in fact, impact teaching the high elbow catch. And so when people see this and they realize how streamlined it is and how easy it is to use, I think they'll appreciate that. Like, oh, okay, it's like I don't know, a Jaguar or Mercedes or whatever. It's pretty nice looking. Or a Tesla. Whatever. They're very functional. They're not perfect, but they're really working in trying to provide fundamental comfort, safety, and design aerodynamics. All those things that go into it. It'll be great to have the support of your listeners and others to help us launch this company, because we have a lot more to offer, and it's an exciting time for us to have made this long journey. It's a very long journey, and I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And it's we could have very easily just gone, especially through COVID, when we were like almost sort of ready to get going. It would have been very easy to throw in the towel, but as long as you don't quit, then you can still succeed. And it's taken a while to get here, but we've gotten here. So
it's like training technique. You have to keep after it. You just can't stop. It takes hours and hours and hours and persistence. And it's the same thing that we've had to do with this project. It's quite a story, and we're right at the precipice of it. And but it's very similar to what people need to do with their technique, and they'd be so surprised how focusing on it in a deliberate way can be super helpful.
So if you listen to this, it's now up on Kickstarter. We're going through the campaign now. And if you'd like to get yourself a pair of these paddles, you can jump on, and I'll put those links in the show notes. So Marc, thank you so much for being on the podcast and chatting about the catch and your philosophies with coaching, product design, and how to approach these different things. And it's been very interesting working with you and chatting regularly, because you think about things differently to a lot of coaches, and probably more deeply than any other coaches that I've come across. And I think that's why the things that you design are so unique and so different, and have had huge success in the past with the paddles that you have designed there. But I think these new ones that you've come up with are a step far above from what you have done in the past. And obviously technology evolves and all those sorts of things, so we're able to make them now where that may not have been possible back then. So I'm looking forward to launching these and to getting them into the hands of swimmers and triathletes who just want to swim faster, and that's a big part of their life. Because when we look at swimming, it's not just a sport or an activity. For a lot of people, it's something that they love. It's something that they want to get better at. They're doing it regularly. They want to beat their mates. They want to beat their friends. They want to get higher in the results in their triathlons. So it's much more than just an activity or a sport. I think it means a lot more to people than they will say. And
well, it's quite pleasurable to do things right and to feel like you're making the right motions. That's really at the end of the day, it's pleasure. And oftentimes that results in faster. And but I also would say, Brenton, it's been really a pleasure working with you. I guess now somewhere over 5 or 6 years, and your contributions to all these products have been at the highest level too. So I really appreciate all of your work. I know we have different roles here with our small company, but your feedback on testing and the performance and the specificity that these products are trying to accomplish was really very helpful and appreciated.
Well, thank you, Marc. And we'll no doubt chat soon. So thanks very much for being on the podcast.
All right. Thanks, so appreciate it.